The Brooklyn Nets just came off a series where they lost in 7 games to the Milwaukee Bucks. Now this loss was weird. In Game 7, Kevin Durant had an all-time game, putting up 48 points, which is the highest scoring game in a Game 7 ever. That game was amazing. It had everything you wanted, the tenseness, the overtimes, the big shots that were hit like Kevin Durant, and it was all you could want from a Game 7. But nonetheless, today we're getting into the 5 reasons why the Brooklyn Nets lost and why might next season be their season to break out and win a championship. At number 5 for their biggest problems is inconsistency. In the 3 games that the Nets won in this series, they shot 49% from the field, 42% from 3, and 88% from the free throw line. These people almost shot 50, 40, 90 as a team in the games they won. That's just straight blistering inefficiency. However, though, in the losses that they piled up, the 4 losses that they piled up in this series, they shot just 42% from the field, 29% from 3, and 77% from the free throw line. Inconsistency was a big problem with this Nets team, and we obviously saw that. On the nights that they did win, they were shooting the lights out, shooting like Stephen Curry type efficiency numbers. And the nights that they did lose, it was because they couldn't hit a shot. The Nets this playoff series were built off hot shooting games. And if they didn't have a hot shooting game, they were losing. And at number 4, we have the over-reliance on Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was fantastic this series. Like I said, in Game 7, he dropped 48 points. He had many memorable games through that series and was just looking like his old self, the clutch demon that could hit a shot from anywhere. However, though, this over-reliance hurt. Why this over-reliance hurt is because when they needed a role player to hit a big shot, they couldn't because the role players were not in their rhythm. Yeah, that might sound stupid. Some role players take 3 shots a night and shoot 60% from the field. But Kevin Durant's playmaking wasn't good enough to get these role players good looks and get them hot. What would have saved this was James Harden. But obviously James Harden was not even a quarter of himself in this series. He did not play well at all because of that hamstring injury he went through. So the role players didn't step up. So the over-reliance on Kevin Durant, yeah, he single-handedly kept them in games and made sure they didn't lose by 20 every night that they lost. But it did come to a deficit of the team, considering that the role players, they just weren't in their rhythm. Man, we've seen over-reliance on a single player in the past. MJ, when he was the only consistent scorer on his team, those teams didn't win championships. 2009, we saw LeBron average almost 40 points a game on great efficiency. But simply enough, the over-reliance on LeBron James that series didn't get him past the Magic. This man averaged 40 points and his second leading scorer shot 37% from the field. When you can't make to those players because they're just not hitting shots, you ain't getting nowhere, even if you averaging some great stats. And even then, KD's playmaking or lack of playmaking was even more vital in this series than any other time. The Bucks' defensive plan was not to stop KD. In fact, it was trying to make KD's teammates less impactful. They knew KD was going to feast, so when role players can't get hot, all the pressure's on KD, and all they did was just enough. The defensive plan to let KD eat was risky, but it paid off. The Bucks didn't double much, and Giannis, their best defender, played a very limited amount of possessions guarding Kevin Durant. And at number 2, as the biggest problem and why the Nets didn't win this series, it is paint protection. 154 of 223 points Giannis scored in this series were in the paint, meaning 70% of his points were scored in the paint. Their rim protection was not bad, it was terrible. For someone to not even hit half of his free throws and still kill you, it just shows the weakness of their paint protection. And at number 1 of their biggest problem that they had all series, it was definitely injuries, and this is by a far stretch. The Nets needed playmaking, and when healthy, James Harden is the best playmaker or a top 3 playmaker in the NBA. The Nets needed consistent 3-point shooting. Kyrie Irving just came off a 50-40-90 season, his most efficient season ever. If he played all games, he could definitely supply you with that. The Nets needed to trim down on turning over the ball. James Harden and Kyrie Irving are 2 of the best guards in the league and don't turn the ball over that much. This was known when it was coming into the series, but health played a big factor in the Nets team. And like I said in a previous video, we know the ceiling of this Nets team is as high as it can get. But the fact that they just don't stay healthy is a big detriment to what they can produce in the future. So when all 3 of these stars are at full health, it's going to be scary. However, though, we never know if that's actually ever going to happen, considering that they've only played 7 games together where they've actually all been at full strength. And for the final thing we're going to talk about is if I think the Nets will win a championship next year. I think they very well can. Next year, the NBA will be a lot stronger. There have been a record-setting amount of injuries this year. With the combination of talent that they have and the enough defense that they have shown earlier in this regular season, I think they can get it done. The Brooklyn Nets are one of the most well-rounded teams in the NBA, and it's not even because they're deep or anything like that. It's just because they have 3 of the greatest players on the planet, and nobody's legacy was tarnished from this series at all. James Harden, he gets a pass, man. He had that hamstring injury. He's still a top 4 shooting guard of all time. Kevin Durant, he balled the fuck out. He let y'all know who he was. Still a top 3 small forward of all time. And yeah, Kyrie Irving is still one of the best scorers of this generation. Barring injury, they might have won that series. But nonetheless, the Bucks are going to face the Hawks in the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 1 of it is tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Hey, thank y'all for watching the video. Make sure to leave a like if you liked the video. Subscribe. And we just hit 2.2K. Thank you for hitting 2.2K, bro. You know what I'm saying? Our next milestone is 2.5K. We're going to get there soon. Thank you for watching the video. And yeah, peace out.
Be with that, smoking on this tree, I eat with the cat, it be around me cause I don't trust a soul, yeah. Niggas switching up on they bros, yeah. Changing up for these hoes, yeah. That's why I don't fuck around, ayy. Smoking on dope out the zip. Y'all niggas savage, we still remain trip. My niggas savage, we clutch on that grip.